Good morning, David Schein. How are you? Back from your travels to Virginia, was that right? Virginia?
Yeah, that is correct, and it's kind of a bookend situation because I caught the tail end of Hurricane Sally, ran through Virginia and North Carolina, so I was greeted by a day of heavy rain and overnight flooding, but it cleared, and there was a beautiful weekend in Virginia, and then I got back here last night to street heavy rain, and then of course we've had street flooding overnight and this morning, so it's like I can't seem to get away from it. Of course my colleagues tell me I brought it with them. Brought it with me.
Yes, they do, I bet. But you made it back here just in time to embrace our the first one that's really hit us pretty much head on this year, and it's a tropical storm, and it's Beta. So we're going through our second round of all the names, and that's not the usual thing. But anyway, I'm glad you made it back safely. You're here to talk about what's going on in this wonderful country of ours. We break the segments, the podcast into three segments. Number one is what's in the news. And honestly, we are never at a lack for anything that's in the news. And then what are all the rumors going around? And, we never know if they're true or not. We hear them depending on sometimes what TV channel you watch or who you listen to, but what are the rumors? And then the facts. What are just the facts? So let's start with the news.
You say A, and that's your final answer?
And the big news across the country, of course, is the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg this past Friday. So tell us about that.
Well, first of all, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was on the Supreme Court for a long time and held the position for far longer than probably was called for due to her significant medical concerns. I do extend my condolences to her family. I don't know much about her family. Clearly, she was an icon for the left. She was an icon for certain women's movements and things like that. But in terms of her contribution to the Supreme Court, I think she'll be largely viewed as a vote in the minority, which is something that people tend to overlook, is that virtually all of her time on the Supreme Court, she has been in the minority as the Supreme Court, fortunately for America, has been controlled by largely conservative justices. And it is my hope, again, that the president will act promptly. I think it's very interesting because the Democrats are screaming bloody murder. Old Chucky Schumer came out today to, again, urge that they not fill the position. And the only reason for doing that would be that they're hoping that they can defeat Trump and win the Senate. They need to do both in order to capture an opportunity to put a liberal vote in there. I think for America, and one of the things that I think people miss about the importance of the Supreme Court is the Supreme Court's main charge in life is to make sure that American laws follow the Constitution, that Americans' legal actions in our court system follow the Constitution. And unfortunately, the Democrats' view is a more activist judicial system. And so we desperately need in America a conservative court. And unfortunately, Roberts, the Chief Justice, has not been a consistent conservative vote in the Supreme Court, even though he was appointed by a Republican president. And this has happened before, but I think that this is an opportunity for America. And again, many Americans who lean liberal or lean left do not understand that they benefit by having a conservative Supreme Court. It's not just the conservatives in America who don't make up the majority of the political base. The political base of America is largely middle of the road. Some lean Democrat, some lean Republican. But the conservative and the liberal wings tend to be a little far out on the edges there, which is why they call it the right and the left, not the center. But so I have not seen the list of judges. I do know that it is explicitly planned to be a female appointment. I'm okay with that, though we do have to face the fact that at some point in America, we need to start appointing especially to the high court, the single best lawyer in America to be on that court, regardless of gender, regardless of color. And we're not at that point, and that's unfortunate. But I do think, given that women make up the majority of the population in the world, that it is good to have a female jurist replaced by a female jurist. I actually was hopeful that one of his prior appointments, this will be his record third appointment in just one term in the presidency. It will be a excellent choice, and maybe should have been the choice last time, but I'm looking forward to that. So that's my reaction to the situation with Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
So we do have a vacancy at this point in the Supreme Court of the United States, right?
Definitely.
And the goal is to have that position filled before the election in November.
Right. I've heard an interesting twist on this. There are two Republican senators who have two liberal Republican senators who've indicated that they will not vote for Supreme Court nominee at this point. And so it's a very close vote. However, very interestingly, a longtime opponent of President Trump, Mitt Romney, has announced that if they bring it to a vote, he will vote for that candidate. And that's extremely important because they're counting every single vote. So I think that is going to be the green light to get this done now. President Trump, latest that I heard just this morning, is he will announce Saturday of this week his choice for the jurist. He'd already previously said that it'll be a female jurist. And I have seen one potential candidate who sits on the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, a conservative circuit. And I don't know much about that particular candidate. I just know that's one of the names that has been mentioned. So let's all keep our fingers crossed and see how it goes over the next couple months.
We do live in exciting times.
Yes, we do.
So what rumors do we have going around these days?
Well, the weakest link. Goodbye.
Well, you know, it is campaign season for the morons. And one of the things is that Obamacare has largely been dead in the water for years. It was unsuccessful when it was passed, even though John Roberts voted with the minority to allow Obamacare as a allegedly unconstitutional invasion of people's privacy, and he voted in favor of Obamacare. The reality is that Obamacare has been picked away. It never worked. Obama himself lied, should have gotten 48 Pinocchios with what he said. Remember, if you like your doctor, you get to keep your doctor. That was false. I knew people, one specific situation about Obamacare that I ran into is my college-age son was covered by a personal Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, and he was paying about $120 a month. And then Obamacare was passed, and Blue Cross Blue Shield contacted him and said, hey, that plan is gone. You have to enroll in an Obamacare plan. So he goes online, he enrolls in the Obamacare plan, and it's $220 a month. Did you hear that? Went from $120 a month to $220 a month because it's Obamacare. This is a healthy young man, doesn't need comprehensive coverage and so forth, not planning to have babies last I heard, and things like that. And it's $100 a month more. Now, here's what happened. He did not make much money at that time because he was working a lot of hours, but he was also a full-time college student. And he qualified for the Obamacare subsidy. So instead of paying $120 a month for his previous plan, he was paying $85 a month because the federal government was subsidizing him to have health insurance that he already had and was willing to pay $35 a month more for. And so it's always been a fraud. It's been a fraud since the get-go. The big fraud that has now been resurrected is that President Trump is going to take away our pre-existing condition coverage. Now, here are the numbers. I have two relatives who are not covered by employer health insurance and who have pre-existing conditions. One of them, to get private health insurance, it was going to be $2,000 a month, $2,000 a month. The other one, it was going to be $2,500 a month. So both of them went without health insurance because they literally could not afford it because they had pre-existing conditions. So the point is Obamacare says you can't deny someone insurance, health insurance, if they have pre-existing condition, but set no limits on the premium. It's an illusion. It's a fraudulent representation. So for people to bring that up now at election season saying, oh my God, Trump's going to take the pre-existing condition deal away from our people, that's just a ludicrous rumor, and it's totally based without fact. And I think, you know, as I say in my book, the one thing that Obama could claim after 8 years in office and the worst recovery from a recession in history is that he passed Obamacare. And if that's the best he can do, it was a failed 8 years. And that, of course, includes his illustrious VP, Joe Biden, who is trying to pretend that somehow they had a much better administration than they did. So anyway, that's the rumor of the week as the way I see it.
And that is a rumor that I do keep hearing people talking about. So yes, absolutely. That's something that's being talked about by everyone. So, but what we want to do with our Saving America podcast is give you the facts.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Just what are the facts about the government interfering in business?
Well, I talked about this recently, that this blanket ban on evictions is a classic example of government overreaching. In my opinion, the right way to handle evictions would be for people to individually apply to their city or county governments. It should be handled at the local level, not at the federal level. And if you're in dire straits and you need public support, you should be able to go and say, can I get rental support? I've been laid off from my job. My wife's been laid off from my job. I need this support. And I support those local initiatives. If the federal government wants to provide supplemental funding to the localities to help them do that, I'm fine with that, even though I'm against blanket grants to the states because I don't want them to fund bad things that the rest of us do not support. But I think most of us would support not putting families out on the street. Here's the problem with this blanket eviction nonsense, is it's not based on real numbers. It's not based on real people. It basically invites any two-bit huckster who cares to say, hey, I'm not going to pay the rent for 6 or 8 months. What a wonderful gift from the federal government. I'll go gamble more. I'll go drink a few more beers, and I'll go party more. But it's not good for America. And one of the things that it overlooks is the fact that while we may look at some giant apartment complexes that are owned by these big chains and operations, these huge operations, and they certainly do have many thousands of apartment units under rent, the reality is that those are legitimate businesses. And they have a right to be paid their rent, and their rent is then used to pay their mortgages, to pay their employees, to pay for repairs, and to pay taxes on the properties that they're renting. Now, the other part is that many, many landlords in America are not huge corporations. They're people just like you and I who have acquired a second property. Many financial advisors will tell you that one of the great American dreams is to buy a small rental property and to have it where it has plus income and provide income to people in retirement. Well, if you're depending on that income to pay maintenance and utilities and taxes and your mortgage, and hopefully you've got a little bit coming back as cash flow, then your tenants stop paying their rent, you're in a whole world of hurt. And we have not seen the rest of that yet. But a lot of people, good, careful landlords can stand maybe 3 months or 6 months without rent. But we're looking at this thing being 10 months, as much as 10 months without rent. And I think we're going to have a real significant financial impact on the people who are counting on that rental income to keep their properties afloat. So this, I don't think people have really fully analyzed it. Another area where I think the government presently has unfairly discriminated against business and interfered in business is this situation with who's open and who's closed during the shutdown. As people pointed out, they had liquor stores open, but they had churches closed. They had restaurants could not open except for 25% or do takeout. I heard a statistic this morning, 90% of restaurants 90% of restaurants cannot pay their rent presently. Now, one of the biggest restaurant operators in the United States, and he's a fairly high-profile individual, is Tillman Fertitta. He's based here in Houston. It's called the Landry's Restaurants Operation. Tillman got his empire started by buying a couple Landry's restaurants, and he's apparently a heavy-duty financier, and he owns a very wide variety of brands, including the nationwide seafood chain, McCormick and Schmick, Morton Steakhouses. There's a number of things that are under the Landry's banner these days, including a number of individual restaurants that we have here in Houston. But the point is that he went out publicly, and again, this guy's got a reality show called The $1 Million Deal or something, which I would never watch, but I don't watch any reality TVs. My life's too busy. I can't imagine spending time doing that. But in any event, this is a high-profile guy telling us what a great deal maker is. He's got financial challenges because they can't open the restaurants. They can't do what they need to do. I'm not too worried about Tillman Fertitta. I don't think he's going to miss breakfast. But here's what I am worried about. Restaurants in America hire millions of low-income people who live on tips, people who come to work and make $8 and $10 an hour washing dishes and washing off tables and things like that. The impact in our economy is very significant, and it impacts the people who are most in need of that money. And I'd much rather have them working for that money than the federal government increasing its enormous national debt to give more money away to say, oh, hey, aren't you happy? You can stay home and we're going to pay you to stay home, which is a moronic situation. So I think the government, less government is good government. And we've way overdone it. And I'm hopeful that we're going to get this thing straightened out. And the consensus seems to be across the board, not just the United States, but England and Israel and Italy and Spain, is that the draconian shutdown that happened from February, March into June was a failure. It was a simple failure, and that we didn't solve the problem, and we need to do a better job. So I think the government needs to print less money, behave itself, get out of the private sector, and let the private sector do better. And it'd be a lot better for all of us tax-paying Americans and working Americans.
Very good. Oh my gosh. Great information today. So we have covered the news with Ruth Ginsburg and her leaving a vacancy in the Supreme Court. We've covered the rumor. and now with the facts, which is about the government interfering in business. So David, what a great show. Oh my gosh. I can't wait to watch the rerun of this. So thank you very much for being so generous and sharing your time. And I want to remind everyone who is watching or listening, so if you're listening to the podcast or you're watching the video or you're on YouTube, this is the book that was written by David Schein like 2 years ago, was it when it was published, right, David?
Released in February, President's Day 2018.
So we're just past President's Day 2020, and David is now working on the next book, and we'll be telling you all about that in the weeks to come. But I do want to remind you that if you're listening to this or watching this before November, and that's before our election, and this is a presidential election year, then you need to get a copy of this book. This is your guidebook, your research, your homework. Do your homework. Don't just listen to the ads or vote however. Just do your homework on previous presidents. What have they done? How have they reacted in similar issues and challenges that we have today or we've had over the years? So from Woodrow Wilson, who was the president during the last pandemic, all the way through Barack Obama, the studies are all in this book. So one book is all you need to prepare for this election. And you can get it on Amazon. The title of the book, remember, is The Decline of America. So I didn't say much about Dr. Schein earlier, but he is, besides being an author, besides being an attorney and having his own business, the Claremont Management Group, he's also a dean at the University of St. Thomas here in Houston, and he's one of the professors there. So, and he just got back on a trip. So are you going into real estate mogul? Is that your next?
Oh, I don't know about that, but I certainly think I want to be careful right now because of this issue with the landlords and evictions.
If you'd like to get in touch with Dr. Schein, you can reach him by going either to putting a comment in the Facebook page that we're on today, or you can send an email. You can go to the website, ClaremontManagementGroup.com, and send something through the contact us form there. Or how else would you like people to get in touch with you, David?
Those all sound good to me, and of course, I am on social media. Business contacts can reach me through LinkedIn.
Very good. So he is available if you want to reach out to him. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we will see you next week, Tuesday, 11 a.m. for our live streaming of the podcast, and then you'll be able to get the podcast, subscribe to it on any one of the podcast platforms. So we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Schein.
Thank you, Sandy. Take care.